list of amazing, dynamic women of color that all live in Mexico in different regions. We have Claire Soares, who is the CEO of Up in the Air Life, which is a Black-owned luxury travel company, and she puts together some epic experiences for just professionals who are looking to live that life of luxury. Claire has been living in Playa del Carmen now for 2 years, and also she is just enjoying her stay and not really trying to head back to America. She is pro Playa del Carmen, and I love it. Claire, welcome.
Thank you.
And then we have Ashley Roberts. Ashley is a wife and mother of 2, and she has a blog, right? That is, what is it called, Ashley? The Black Family Abroad?
That Black Family Abroad,
That Black Family Abroad, yes. Her and her husband are traveling the world, and they have been living in Mexico for about a year.
Okay.
And they are currently living, hi.
Okay.
They are currently living in Oaxaca, Mexico.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah.
We have, so you've only been in Oaxaca for 8 months, but 8 months is a good amount of time to really give. And then you're really going to be talking about what life is like in Oaxaca right now during this pandemic. We also have Roxanne Munson. Roxanne, I met in Mexico City, one of my favorite places to be in Mexico. Roxanne is just a Renaissance woman. She is living in Mexico City with her husband, who has a career with an American job, correct? And received employment in Mexico. Is that correct, Roxanne?
Mm-hmm. That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. And you, by trade, are is it a nurse or physician?
I'm a nurse. A nurse.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Pediatric nurse. Mm-hmm.
A nurse and a photographer. She takes some great photos. And they have been living in Mexico City for 5 years. Soon to be moving to Panama soon, as your husband received a new position. So congratulations.
Yes.
And I'll be looking forward to seeing your stay in Panama.
Yes.
And we have Jamye Freeman. Jamye and her wife moved to Cancun 2 years ago. Jamye is an educator and works in a school, correct?
Yes. Working at an international school here in Cancun. Okay,
Jamye works for an international school in Cancun and has been there for 2 years. And then we have the veteran of the group, the OG, Patricia and Talley. We saved the best for last. Patricia has been living in Mexico now for how long, Patricia?
It will be 23 years in October.
23
years, full time.
Full time, before becoming a nomad, digital nomad, Black people traveling the world was even a thing, right? You've been doing that.
I'm thrilled to see this. I'm absolutely thrilled to see this.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And tell us, where in Mexico are you actually located?
I'm located in Zihuatanejo, Guerrero. Now, you might remember the Shawshank Redemption movie where at the end, everybody went to the fishing village. That's Zihuatanejo, even though it wasn't. It was a film of Costa Rica. But we're about 4 hours north on the Pacific coast, 4 hours north over Acapulco. So we're on the Pacific side.
Okay, and Acapulco, everybody knows, was like the original Mexico, because that's where all the, I would say the white and fabulous rich folks used to vacation.
Yes, but it's also where a major landing point of all the African slaves that came into this country. So
all right, Patricia, you can teach us something today.
Acapulco is Black. That's part of Black Mexico too.
That is something I did not know. That's awesome. Thank you so much. So thank you to this amazing panelist of people here. If we have anyone else that is currently living in Mexico, can you please drop me a little message in the chat and tell me where you are in Mexico and how long you've been there? I'd love having perspectives from everywhere, right? So This particular discussion came about because of the influx of messaging in my inbox, and I'm sure the rest of your inboxes, about wanting to move to Mexico. Everybody is like, I'm on my way. I'll be there next week. I got my ticket, you know, and then, and that's fine. I get it. It's the only country that's open, literally kind of open with open arms for Americans to come travel. However, I've also been seeing a lot of fluff, right? Chilling. Don't get me wrong, I was at the beach club yesterday. So chilling at the beach, you know, drink in hand, this, that, and the other. But there's so much more to what life is like in Mexico during this time of the pandemic. So I wanted to make sure that I got the different perspectives from the different people in different regions so they can actually answer your questions and also give you the real deal in full transparency about what it's like. So I want to jump things off with Mexico City. And the reason why is because I'm seeing a lot of people talk about wanting to move to Mexico City. Don't get me wrong, it's one of the most beautiful cities in Mexico. I absolutely adore it. However, it is the epicenter of COVID at this time. The cases in Mexico City are very high because it is a largely dense populated area, and they have the metro system and all of those things which create, you know, just easier ways to contract the virus. So when I hear people say, I'm moving to Mexico City, I'm doing this, that's like you guys in America saying, I'm gonna head to New York. It doesn't necessarily pan out, and I'm not sure if people aren't doing their research. So Roxanne, can you give us a little bit about what's going on in Mexico? First of all, let's start with how Mexico City is pre-COVID, because pre-COVID, Mexico City is the bomb.
Pre-COVID, I mean, Mexico City was bustling. You had the markets, you had different concerts coming to town, you had people in the Zocalo just hanging out, you had just a variety of things, all the street vendors. It was just alive. I mean, you just went, wherever you went, it was, you were rubbing shoulders with people, asking people how they were doing. They were trying to engage with you. And then we shut down. And then everything just kind of, people didn't really believe that COVID was a thing. So you had people who was like, oh, you know, it's not that big of a deal. And then when companies started shutting, saying, okay, our employees, we don't want them to come to work, they need to work from home, it started to really impact the maneuverability of people. Like the malls shut down, street vendors were no longer allowed to be out. Like they cleaned out the whole Zocalo area where all you could see was street vendors and people gathering. So that kind of changed. And what I saw was you had people who had means say, stay at home, which is fine. I mean, I could go home, I could hit a button, I could get food delivered to me, I could call somebody, get whatever I wanted. However, the heart of Mexico City is the working poor. So nobody was really talking about, what are we gonna do now for that person who used to supply lunches to all the business people that all of a sudden they're gone. Like the business people are at home. Like who's taking care of that person? The hospitals, my doctor basically said, you do not want to go to the hospital. We cannot afford for people to be in the hospitals right now. One, we're overwhelmed. Two, we don't have the resources. And three, it's just not worth it. But at the same time, it's like the people who really need to work, nobody's really talking about them. So what people within my community have really stepped up to support, you know, the person that they used to get their fish from, or the person used to clean their car or whatever, like try to make those people are okay and that they can at least not venture out so much, because it really is not a good place right now. I mean, there's just, every day you're hearing the numbers going up and up and up, and people are kind of not really taking it seriously because they don't really trust the government. So you have a lot of mistrust. And so I just say, like right now, when people say they're coming to Mexico City, I always say, do you have somebody on the ground that can help you? Because if you don't, you're going to be in a very bad place. because it's just not set up right now for people to just be like, okay, come to my house or I'll meet you somewhere. It's just like nobody's doing that right now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And like Roxanne said, Mexico City was bustling. I mean, the Zocalo is what you would consider the downtown. It's like the plaza. It's where they would have tons of free performance arts and concerts and open air markets and those kind of things. Roxanne, can you share with the audience about the story that you told me about the open air market that reopened and then everybody had passed?
Yeah, well, so Abastos is a huge market here where it basically supplies a lot of the restaurants, a lot of the street vendors actually get their supplies from there. And there was a recent YouTube video that basically talked about, they basically focused on the tomato vendors. And they were basically talking about how when the virus first started, people didn't really take it seriously. And all of a sudden, people that were vendors in this market for years, they started getting sick. And then all of a sudden they started not showing up. You realize, okay, this person died. And then it was like, okay, somebody else died. And then somebody else died. It just basically showed how this one market that is such a pivotal part of Mexico City has been so impacted by this virus. One, because initially it was not that much education going on regarding how to take care of yourself in order to help prevent yourself from catching this virus. And then once it started gaining traction, people were just kind of like, okay, it's too far gone. So that's happening in quite a few of the markets where vendors that were there for years are no longer there. Either they're too scared to come or they have passed away.
All right, so Shauna says that yesterday Mexico had 3,000 new cases. Let's put that into perspective. She says Florida alone had 10K or 10,000. Texas alone had 9,000 and California alone had 8,000. So let me be clear. It's not a comparison to who has more cases and who doesn't. My point is that Mexico City has a lot of cases of COVID in Mexico. Okay, I'm not going to get into a debate of who has more and who doesn't. That's not the point. It's not a comparison of how many people have it and how many people are dying in this city versus that city. The point is, in Mexico alone, Mexico City has some of the highest cases. So it would not be in the best interest of someone to move to Mexico City or think they're vacationing in Mexico City at this particular time. That's
and then you also have to, I was about to say, and also you have to think, okay, you're talking about the US where you probably have funds, you probably have family, you probably have insurance, you can speak the language. You show up here and they say, okay, you're sick. You need to give us X amount of $1,000 up front. Can you do that? They don't accept your insurance. Are you going to be okay with that? You know, so these are other things that beyond just the numbers, asking yourself, if something really does happen to me, do I have things situated in Mexico to make sure that I'm okay? And sadly, I'm not hearing people talk about that aspect of it. It's like, oh yeah, let's come, let's kick it, let's, hang out. That's all great. But in the event something happens, do you have things situated where you can be all right?
Now, that's a great segue. Claire, you have mentioned even in the chat that Mexico is not really doing that many testing. The numbers in Mexico aren't honest, and this is from their own people. Do you want to talk a little bit about the medical insurance side of things and what that looks like, what Roxanne had mentioned? For whatever, I can't hear your audio.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, so for those of you thinking of coming to Mexico, please make sure you have travel insurance. I would highly recommend AXA Platinum Insurance. It is a primary policy. AXA will wire money to the clinic in advance so that you don't come out of pocket. Otherwise, I can tell you in Playa, it is $1,500 US per day due up front before you receive treatment. And I know because I've spent 2 days in the hospital. when I had an issue with my esophagus, and it was $3,000. And I couldn't breathe, and they were like, Visa or MasterCard, before they would do anything. So AXA, I'll send the link to Nubia. It's AXA Platinum. It is a primary policy. There's a few companies that sell primary. Primary means that they will kick in immediately. They will wire tens of thousands of dollars to the hospital. I broke my leg last year in Zambia, and I had a primary policy. So they paid over $20,000 for me to get surgery in a private room. If you do not have if you don't have a primary travel insurance policy, you will be expected to pay upfront in a legitimate, I don't want to say legitimate hospital, but a hospital that speaks English. If you are seriously hurt, you don't want to go to a hospital that you can't speak Spanish. Like, that's just not, I wouldn't say that's the best decision for a person who can't speak Spanish. So that's the situation you will put yourself in. And furthermore, while I believe the numbers are less in Mexico, I don't think they're real, because Mexico is now back in the red. The hotels are still open. So what does that tell you? It tells you that we are open in many cities, not because it's safe, but because we need the tourism economy. We don't have the right to just say that we're going to close. People need jobs. So we're back in the red. Hotels are literally closing on Sunday, and they're reopening again on August 1st. So while our numbers are down, when hospitals are full for locals, it becomes a very scary situation where you end up like Italy, choosing who's going to live or die.
Yeah, I've heard from a couple of people that had Airbnb scheduled for August that they got canceled. Some of the Airbnbs had canceled their reservations in August because maybe you can speak about this, Patricia. You had actually posted about the mayor had said about Tulum being, he kind of regrets opening it up to Tulum because the numbers of cases are getting a little higher. They're seeing a lot of higher cases. That was written in, I believe it was the MEXPAC group, I'm not sure. But do you want to talk about, because I know you have a publication, so.
Well, I'm in Guerrero, so I'm on the opposite side of the country of Tulum, where Tulum is, okay? Mexico's a big country. My comments were here in Guerrero, our mayor just got hospitalized.
Wow.
One of my doctors just got hospitalized last night. Overnight, we doubled the cases of infection here in Guerrero. So we have federal guidelines for every single aspect of the tourism segment. I'm a consultant to the tourism segment. Now, are people following it correctly? No. And are tourists still coming in? Yes, and that's a problem. We're a beautiful beach area, and we got an influx of people coming in from Mexico City, from Guanajuato, from other areas, and not respecting the wear the mask and other precautions. So we were in lockdown. I have been locked down since November 30th. I'm in my 9th month. Like, I could get this baby out, okay? I'm in my 9th month of lockdown. And here we were just beginning to open up. And because of the influx of tourists, overnight, we had 283 cases. Overnight, we had 300 cases more just last night. So,
wow.
Just like everybody else, you know, and as Roxanne was saying, we're not prepared to handle this. In tourism, we were already had 30% poverty level. I do work in economic development. I'm a businesswoman. We already had 30% unemployment. So now with this coronavirus, we're looking at 45, 50% unemployment and jobs not coming back again, to Roxanne's point. So what we're beginning to do is look at programs, economic development programs, grow your own food. We used to be an agricultural and business and fishing community, and we switched to jobs in tourism. So we have to get those types of programs back, because as Roxanne said, many of those jobs are never coming back. So we have to go back to people being able to self-sustain.
Yeah, thank you for sharing those statistics and let us know that information. That's disturbing. So I hope that everything works out with the mayor and the doctors and all of that stuff. Jamie, specifically Cancun was one of the first places in Quintana Roo that kind of opened up for tourism due to the high number of like resorts, right? What's going on and what do you see going on in Cancun specifically?
So we actually went to the States for a week and we just got back Tuesday night. We saw quite a bit of tourists on the plane coming back into Cancun International. I noticed that with the hotels, they weren't open like 100%. I want to say it's like 30% open, but the public beaches were still closed, but the resort beaches are open. Our cases had stabilized like maybe a couple of weeks, and then they started going down, but then they started going back up again once we opened up the tourism. And the thing, kind of like what Claire was saying about how like the markets and like the little vendors and the taco people and, you know, the people just with the street food and everything, a lot of that stuff when we were on lockdown, I mean, it was hustling and bustling before, but once lockdown came, you didn't see those people. And so you literally, like, I get WhatsApp messages from people who are like selling just random stuff who wouldn't ordinarily be selling things, plates or whatever. You try to help out the local community as much as possible. But you still do see some people who aren't, you know, I think with the jobs, with Cancun being a place where most of the jobs are tourism related, I think a lot of those jobs won't come back, like what Patricia was saying. And I think that not just the tourism industry alone, but all of the industries that are tied to it, that these people were, you know, previously attached to, they're going to have to figure it out, because Cancun is a straight up tourism town. You don't find too many people from Cancun, but everybody that you run across in Cancun is from somewhere else that comes to Cancun for the jobs. And with those hotels still being closed, I see the long-term economic impacts are going to be an issue.
Okay. So I see somebody, Adrian says, so question, is this Zoom call to deter people from coming to Mexico? I think I misunderstood what this is about. Well, I'm sorry if you misunderstood. The title of the whole entire discussion is, in full transparency, traveling to Mexico during the pandemic. So the point was and is to get the true story of the account of what's going on, boots on ground in these places in Mexico. So with you being in another country and not really understanding what's going on, it's giving you the real deal. It's not about deterring. We live here. So why would we deter you from coming? We love living in Mexico, obviously, because we are here. It's not a deterrent. It's literally to give you guys the true deal and account of what's going on in every place that we have been and live in, so that you know the real deal. That's it. You can take it however you like and take the information and use it to make the best decisions for you, whether that means that you decide to travel here or not. But this way you know the true account. So Jamie, thank you for sharing.
Real quick,
sharing
Nubia, just to let everybody know, like, you know, they're thinking about coming in. The thing about it is that we're already here and we're already established. We have jobs, we have all of our things set up for us to function. And so if somebody's trying to move in the middle of the pandemic, these are all things for them to think about as far as being stable when they arrive. You don't want to be unstable in the middle of a pandemic in a foreign country that you do not speak the language.
Great point, Jamie. Great point. Because I would hands down tell everybody on this panel, if you were to leave America, Mexico would be the first place I would choose. I mean, it's not far from the US. Mexico is a beautiful country. Every region is so different from one another. And it has just, I mean, it's such a beautiful place to be. I honestly have lived in multiple countries around the world. And I've been in Mexico now a little over a year. And I've lived in 3 different regions within Mexico. And I love it. But during the pandemic right now is when I'm seeing the influx of everybody trying to get up and move. That is the point of this particular conversation and discussion. I see the chat is blowing up. We're talking about coming here during the pandemic. That is what we're referring to. So I'm going to come over to Ashley. Ashley's in Oaxaca. And Oaxaca actually just sustained an earthquake. It was almost like an 8 on the Richter scale. Am I not mistaken? It was a pretty big earthquake. About a month. You're on mute, ma'am.
Yeah, sorry, I just unmuted myself. Yeah, it was like a 7.5 earthquake. That was the first earthquake I've ever gone through. I'm from Chicago, so have other disasters, but not natural ones. So that was my first one. And but the funny thing was, like, my family was the only one acting crazy. Like 10 minutes afterwards, everyone was back outside going about their business. Like it wasn't just a major earthquake. That's just kind of how Oaxaca is, I guess.
Well, that happens on the Pacific coast side. You guys are more apt to have earthquakes because you're on that Pacific coast, just like California would have earthquakes. I would assume that's the same current or same space. So you got to worry about those kind of natural disasters. But you don't have hurricanes, which typically Cancun and Playa may have more of, so that's a good thing. So what are you seeing going on in Oaxaca right now during the, what are some of the restrictions that are going on in Oaxaca?
Well, you know, we just entered into orange. Okay, so for everyone who doesn't know, Mexico is on like a stoplight system from like red to green. So if it's red, things are completely shut down. So we moved from red to orange. So things are opening up a little bit. So now you can go down to Zocalo, it's open now. Restaurants are opened up with reduced capacity, but you can go sit down now. Hotels are open, things. All the major tourist things though are still closed. So like Monte Alban, all the archaeological sites, museums, those things you can't go to, but outdoor spaces are opened up now, so.
Yeah. Now, I know in the Yucatan, specifically, is it Merida? I know the mayor just said that they're about to go on a complete dry spell for 45 days, no alcohol sales at all, starting Monday, if I'm not mistaken. Did you guys hear that? Yeah, they were dry actually for almost 2 months during the first shutdown. So now they're about to lock back down in Merida for another month and a half with no alcohol sales at all. And at one point in Playa, we were without all beer for like 2-3 months. They were sold out of beer, alcohol sales. They weren't doing sales after 5 p.m. There was an influx of accidents, auto accidents, due to the amount of consumption of alcohol, right? But people weren't getting hit because people weren't on the streets. People were running into like sidewalks and trees and inanimate objects and things like that. So it may actually trickle back where they're gonna pull alcohol sales at some point. Somebody asked if we are required to wear masks in Mexico. So I can answer this for Tulum. I currently live in Tulum. And I will say that Tulum has been extremely relaxed. Most people are not walking on the streets of Tulum with masks on, period. Beach clubs, you don't see any masks. People are at dinners and restaurants, you don't see masks. Now, you do have to have masks with you in order to get into an establishment. But as soon as you walk into the establishment, you can take it right off. And that's what I've seen. And I've been out several, I've been one of those people, I can't lie. I've been out, you know, we had girl nights and had different places, but most of Tulum is outdoor space. There's not a lot of, even the restaurants are outdoors. They're like indoor, outdoor. So there aren't a lot of indoor spaces in Tulum that are actually open at this time. The beaches are still technically closed. So the moment you walk onto the beach, depending on where you are, you may get pulled over and stopped and asked to move away from the beach. So there is no swimming in the ocean at this moment. So you don't see people on the beach laid out with masks on. Claire, what are you seeing in Playa?
Outdoor spaces, no. I mean, I don't always wear a mask if I walk my dog. I don't feel it's necessary given my knowledge of how the virus is passed. If you're in an indoor facility Restaurant, taxi cab, absolutely you have to wear a mask, and you get sanitized. In some places, spray down your clothes before you enter. But any place that serves food, I mean, you obviously can't wear a mask when you're eating, but I will say, to Nubia's point, the reason why I think Mexico is a great option is because a lot of places are outdoors. And so when you transition to being outdoors, it's generally, in my opinion, from everything I've read, you can social distance easier. So it's a little bit easier to be safer versus being in a closed restaurant with germs flying around potentially. So it's a different lifestyle.
Yeah. What about you, Ashley? In Oaxaca, are people required to wear masks? Is it mandatory?
No, I mean, people don't. So I'm not sure if there's like a rule out there that you're supposed to, but I say it's like 50-50 in the city. And even right now, we're at the beach right now, and it's most people aren't wearing masks. So.
Okay. Now, Patricia says we are an outdoor community, a beach community, and the numbers are increasing. It is easier to be apart in the social distance, but the numbers speak for themselves. So that is true. Mexico is pretty much an outdoor community. Even in Mexico City, even though there are places to be inside, what I loved about Mexico is that people are outdoors. They spend a lot of their time outdoors, whether it's in the parks, whether it's just congregating in different places with their friends and family and things like that. So it has been a situation where I think we all are, even though we know wearing masks are necessary and imperative, we're all tired of wearing them. I'm not gonna lie, I know I am. But it doesn't mean that I don't wear it. It just means that I know I get tired to always have to wear it. So I think that some of that plays a part. So we've also had, how is the internet connectivity in the various places? Kia, that is a good question, because I'm about to apologize to you guys up front, because I'm looking out the window and there might be a rainstorm, and if it rains too hard, bye-bye. So again, Tulum is more of a beach jungle, where the jungle meets the beach, okay? And I can only speak for Tulum and Playa in Mexico City, for where I've lived. And Tulum Wi-Fi sucks horribly. So I went and purchased this little bad boy called the Sky Room. And this is what I'm actually connecting to tonight, so that I don't have many, issues with connectivity. I know in Playa, the Wi-Fi is a little bit better because it's a major city, so you can buy kind of up speeds. Mexico City, same thing, Wi-Fi is a little bit better. I've used Wi-Fi in Oaxaca, and I feel like that's been great. Cancun, I know, Jamie, you guys have had issues with Wi-Fi in Cancun a couple of times, especially with your wife teaching online. And Patricia, what's Wi-Fi like in your region? Patricia, you're on mute, actually. You gotta hit unmute.
Okay.
There you go.
My challenge right now is because we have so many universities in the area, and everybody is teaching classes online, that the demand is such that all of a sudden over these last months, the internet connections are very poor. Okay. I do want to add one more point that everybody should very much pay attention to, and that is the process of obtaining a power of attorney. Should you get ill, should you have a problem here in Mexico and you become incapacitated and someone else has to act on your behalf, you have to have a legalized power of attorney in place for that to happen. I think that's an important point. By coincidence, my attorney wrote me this morning talking about that, and I'm working with him tonight and tomorrow. I will publish an article about that because I think that's extremely important. I did not know. I will be at his office next week to do that. So again, something that I think is extremely important for everybody.
All right. Well, we had a couple of questions actually come to my inbox before the discussion. And I believe it's Suki. Suki, I see you look like you're on the beach. Hey, girl. Are you able to be unmuted? Did you want to ask your question personally, or do you want me to ask? Okay, can't hear. There you go.
Hi, it's a little loud where I am, and I apologize. I don't even remember what I asked. That's why I emailed.
Okay, no problem. You had asked if Mexico is opening and then closing depending on what they see, or once they open, will they stay open?
Yes, that was my question. I have a little boy. There you go. And it's really hard, kind of up and down, inside, outside, all of that. So for us, to be honest, the internet's kind of the most important thing. So I'm not even, if it opens and closes, kind of no big deal. But I just kind of want to know what to expect when we get there so that we can prepare. So our plan is to go to Puerto Escondido in August. Right now is the plan. It just kind of depends on, I guess, what we see with the numbers. I'm in South Carolina right now, so the numbers can't get any worse than where I am. So coming to Mexico is not a big change or difference between where I am.
So let me ask you, why specifically Puerto Escondido? I'm very curious as to why you chose that space.
So it was a lot of research. So we've been traveling a lot too the last 6 or 7 years. So we've lived in Panama, Colombia, Ecuador. So we've done the rounds, and we figured if we had to ride out the pandemic anywhere, we were actually going to move to Medellin, but Colombia is on such a strict lockdown that we just kind of want a place to lay our head for a year or so, and we figured a beach town was it. So it was really more of we work from home and we've been working for ourselves for years. So it was basically pick a place where there aren't a lot of people. And that was it.
Okay. All right. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to refer back to what Ashley mentioned, is that Mexico is on a stoplight system, right? So it's very difficult for any one of us to answer that question specifically because we don't know, right? Everything changes from day to day, city to city, town to town, country to country, regarding their rules and regulations and restrictions. So we were in the red, now we're in the yellow, now we're back in the orange. It kind of changes depending on where you are at. Puerto Escondido is a very sleepy, small, coastal town. So there's not much going on there any given day. So I can't imagine that there's anything really going on during the pandemic. They don't have a ton of shops. There's not a ton of things to do in Puerto Escondido. So I would imagine that, and I'm speaking from just experience of have been there, not during the pandemic, pre-pandemic, there wasn't a lot going on in Puerto Escondido. So I can't say that there would be anything going on during the pandemic. However, one of somebody I do know was just there, and she was floating around like if she was anywhere else. She went out to dinner, she did, you know what I mean? So it didn't seem like there was much of a difference. I can give you that. I will say the Wi-Fi is not going to be the best in any coastal area. Just being by a coast, you just have to, be aware of weather conditions, high winds, not having the best Wi-Fi. So if anybody is so worried about Wi-Fi, it's, being on a beach. It kind of bothers me when I see people, like, you can come chill on the beach, work. First of all, I don't take my computer on the beach. I'm not trying to have sand in my computer. And once you're on the beach, you lose a ton of Wi-Fi connectivity. Now, if you want to go to the beach club and sit inside the restaurant and eat and then yes, you can most likely use your Wi-Fi. So that's all I can say about that. I don't know if Mexico will end up closing at any point in time. But Claire mentioned the fact, and Roxanne mentioned the fact that we are built strongly upon tourism. So with the fact that we need tourism, that I'm not sure they will strictly shut out people. Claire, did you want to say something about that?
Yeah, I was going to say there's confusion around people saying Mexico reopening. Mexico never closed, just to be clear. The only closure was on the land border. We never stopped allowing tourists. I live in a hotel condo. We never stopped having people come. So that is a confusion thing. You always could come. And, you know, to my point earlier, the reason why I wouldn't go back home to the States is because my building has a rooftop pool. It has 3 jacuzzis. And so quarantining here safely is different than going home with just a backyard. I can still do it safely here in a building. So that's why I think a lot of people are moving, is because you can afford a better quality of life, I'd argue, for a fraction of what you're paying now.
Exactly. I could definitely agree to that. So April K had said that we mentioned the impact on the tourism industry. What about other industries? How has the pandemic affected all of us professionally? I'm going to start with Jamie, because Jamie, you are a teacher. So you actually work in a brick and mortar. You're not like some of us and do like the digital nomad thing. So how has the pandemic affected you professionally?
Okay, so I teach at a brick and mortar school. It's an international school. I teach history and civics and government, U.S. history, U.S. civics and government. And we ended up transitioning to distance learning. So both of us, my wife already worked from home. She teaches online, ESL. But with both of us being, that's going back to the internet thing as well, with both of us being online and working from home, we're sucking up all of the internet, and everybody, you know, in the Western hemisphere is on the internet between the hours of like 8 and 5. So that's something to consider. My school is flexible, where they allowed me, I didn't have to follow the same schedule I had before. So I was able to kind of balance it out where I could get my classes in before the internet slowed down, you know, tremendously during the day. I think also, you know, I'm an author as well. So that gave me a little time to do some other things with that as well. But we're used to being out and about. We're used to being at the beach. Part of being here and the allure of being here was to be able to go and connect with the elements, with the sea breeze, with the ocean, with putting our feet in the sand. So that's been kind of like, I guess, the soul draining part of it. But then, you know, when you think about stuff and how other people aren't able to do that, you know, it kind of puts it in a more, you know, gratuitous perspective. But the biggest thing is just staying mentally strong, I think, for that, because it can be a toll on you, but also the disconnect from the students, because people don't realize how much of a bond that you have with your students. I don't know about other industries, but, you know, with education, you create a bond with your students. And I've been with my kids for 2 years. So that's another part of it. But other than that, it hasn't been too bad. We just can't just up and travel like we used to. That's the only thing that I can really fuss and complain about. We haven't had problems getting supplies. We haven't had problems with toilet paper. No people ransacking the stores or anything like that. You know, we have our stockpile together, and, you know, we get our big jugs of water when the water agua comes outside. But other than that, I can't complain. I would say I prefer being quarantined here than being quarantined in the United States. I feel safe here. I wouldn't feel safe at home, unfortunately.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Claire, I can go to you about how the pandemic has affected you professionally, with you being the owner and operator of a travel business. Do you mind sharing how the pandemic has affected you professionally?
Sure. When it first happened, I think it was just a refusal to accept what was happening. I think I cried for about 20 days straight, grieving that this was going to be, we had a $2 million year last year. This was my big $5 million year. And basically our revenue dropped 80%. And I decided to stop taking money from clients and canceled massive trips and gave people credits, because I thought it was the right thing to do. So we won't have any income for the next year, but I have other business opportunities that I'm pivoting in. that were things I wanted to do. So it's a blessing where I had to basically take a break to figure out what I wanted out of life. And so that's been the hardest. But at this point now, I've accepted the fact, and I was talking to my friend in LA who owns an event company. The reality is that this is going to be the reality for another year, right? That's my belief. I don't believe that we're going to be traveling anytime soon unless you feel comfortable. And those people are very slim to none, I feel like, who really want to travel like 20 hours if you're even able to. So, but you know, we get through it.
All right, thank you for sharing. Roxanne, what about you? Have you had a lot of impact on your professional businesses due to COVID?
Well, I mean, I'll be totally transparent and say we're in Mexico because of my husband's job. So his job is solid. So that has not impacted us as a family. I'm a documentary photographer. I traveled around Mexico, interacting with people, taking pictures. I was just starting to do experiences with my partner where we had people coming in and we took them around and took pictures of them. And COVID hit as soon as we were getting going. And like Claire said, you just kind of, it centers you. It makes you reflect on what's important to you, what matters. I realized that although that was something I was very interested in and I enjoyed, it made me realize I've seen so much. My life is so rich here that I'm not missing anything. So in this season where I have to be still, I can be still because I don't feel as though like, oh my gosh, there's something happening and I can't go. I've seen it. I've done it. You know, I have such rich relationships with people here that we just kind of stay connected. We talk, we help. I have a wonderful Black community here where we have a WhatsApp chat and we, you know, talk and we reminisce and we share and we do Zoom calls. And I think that's what I have decided, that in this season, I'm not going to worry about not being able to travel around Mexico, taking pictures. I'm going to reconnect with the relationships that I have here and just make sure that my tribe, that we're okay, that we know we have the support of each other so that once we're feeling safe again, we can pick up and redo what we've left off from pre-COVID.
Thank you for sharing. So Patricia, can you please unmute? I see that you wrote that
Yes.
your advertising revenue has dropped significantly, and that you had to pivot and change your business model, which I think a lot of us had to do, is pivot during this time. Can you give us a little bit about that?
Sure.
First, tell them what you do and what that means that your advertising revenue dropped.
Well, again, I'm an entrepreneur. So for me, I've operated hotels, restaurants, teaching services, and now media, imagine-mexico.com. So I work and live off revenues here in Mexico. Fortunately, I'm old enough to get a Social Security check. So that's my offshore revenues. But like all media, my readership is skyrocketing, but advertising revenues are zilch. So I understand when Claire's talking about tours, absolutely not. That's not going to happen in reality. That's probably not going to happen for another year away. So what I've done, because I've had this platform of some 4 or 5 million visits per year, is helping businesses and services promote and sell their products. Because I can sell online, I can do various things to help assist them online in selling their products. So we all have to restructure. We're all in that. We've got to restructure. Doing business here in Mexico, it'd be very much to your advantage if you spoke the language, if you're going to work and do business here. But it's an easy language to learn and the people are so inviting. So again, like everybody else, we just have to adjust.
Exactly. Now, Ashley, what do you do as a stream of revenue, and has COVID impacted that?
Okay. I teach ESL online, so I haven't really been affected by that. so much. Where it's really affected my life and my family's life is just with the kids. Oaxaca is such a great city for kids because there's a free children's museum, a free children's library, an English library, so many parks and the archaeological ruins. So we would be out every day almost doing something. So now that everything was closed, it was hard for my kids to adjust and for me to adjust in that way. But we find things, like we found lots of little natural trails to go on around the house. Still going to the Mercado is always a new experience. So we found ways to still have fun in those ways, but professionally, no, it hasn't affected me, thankfully.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I see a lot of parents that were talking and they were like, I love my kids, but damn, I can't be home 24 hours a day, every day of the week with them. Like, this is crazy. So we have a couple of more questions. Barb, I'm not sure if Barb is online or not. Barb had asked a question about the mask, which we already kind of addressed. But her next question was, would you advise Americans to hold off on traveling to Mexico at this time? Does anyone want to take that?
I would say if you've done your research and you've been planning and preparing, then go ahead with your plan, but make sure that you covered everything, dotted your I's and crossed your T's. If you're just, making it from an emotional standpoint of I'm sick of this and I got to get out of here now, I would say hold off a minute until you actually finish planning properly. It's not, you can't just up and leave. It took us about 2 years of planning, a year of discussing, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? I'm talking about everything from geography to weather, climate, job situations, what the culture was like, all of these things, learning a little bit of Spanish. So you can't just up and leave, especially if you got kids and a family. So that's definitely something to think about. But if you feel it in your spirit and your soul and it's telling you to do what you got to do, and you have a game plan, plan B, C, D, E, get out, man. I'm all for people being free.
Can I add to that, Nubia?
Power to the people.
Or Patricia?
I said power to the people.
I would say if you want,
you're talking about a Black Panther over here, all right?
I can dig it. She like, come on, y'all. All right, Claire, what was you gonna say?
if you're gonna come, if you're single like me and you don't have kids, to me, my advice to everyone who inboxes me all the time now, I tell them, do not make this a complicated decision. Come for 30 days minimum. I do not recommend you come from a week. We're in the middle of the pandemic still. So 30 days, come, keep your place in America. You could get a nice place here for $500, $600, $800 in any city, luxury. And if you don't require that level, even cheaper. Don't make this difficult. It'll be the best decision of your life. You're gonna learn that you either like it or you don't, and you can always go back and go somewhere else. But don't make this difficult, people. I made the mistake of making this, I had to plan. If you can afford to spend an extra $1,000 a month, you're good, just come here. And you probably spend that much on vacation in 1 week. So that's my advice. But if you got family, if I was a single mom, I still would just come. And here's why, I just spoke to my girlfriend. Some of the schools are deciding not to start. So if your kid's not going back to school, you could still come for a month or two, but you need to work that out because you need to be a responsible parent. I'm not a parent, so I couldn't tell you that, but.
Well, I will say this, okay? I have no problem with you guys coming to Mexico, not any at all. My problem is everybody in my inbox asking me about Airbnbs, and I'm not Airbnb. Go to airbnb.com and get your accommodations. I'm not a realtor or any of those things. So the same way I came by doing my research. There are tons of groups, specifically from Mexico in the different regions. You can ask questions in those groups. I try to sway people from asking questions about where to live. Like, when you try to find a place to live in the US, are you in, a group asking people like, should I move to this? Like, you really just have to do your due diligence. You know what I mean? And on top of that, because we're in the middle of a pandemic, when you get here, it's not going to be indicative of what it was like pre-COVID. So you're going to be disappointed because you're not going to be swimming up in the ocean. You're not going to be doing all the things that you think you're coming to Mexico to do. So if you come here and that particular city, state, or town decides to go into the red and shut down, you're shut down, period. So at the end of the day, just keep and continue to do your due diligence. You know what I mean? I love the fact that people wanting to finally leave the US. I'm pro leave the US. And I'm here to assist people because that's what I do. But like Claire said, don't make it so difficult and so overwhelming that people like us that want to help shy away from helping because you're like on us so much, where it's like, just relax, take a deep breath, and know you have to have faith in yourself and in your decision making. And unless you are strong in your decision making, you feel like, you know what, this is what I want to do, don't do it if you're not feeling comfortable enough. If you're feeling comfortable enough, do it. Check it out, come see it for yourself, live it up for a little while in places that can open. What I wouldn't recommend, and I see this happening a lot, is I'm coming to Mexico and I'm going to Mexico City, Oaxaca, Tulum, and then I'm gonna go to Merida. Why? Why are you traveling throughout Mexico during a pandemic? First of all, traveling through Mexico isn't always going to be the funnest, especially if you're on a bus. Number two is, let's get into the airports really quickly, and I'll give you guys this. There is a rule in Mexico, when you come into Mexico with more than one laptop, they will charge you for the second laptop. People are getting charged at the airports, especially in Merida, where they're getting taxed on their electronics. So people are coming with, you know, the drones and the laptops and the GoPros and all of this stuff. As a country who really does get their money on tourism, they're gonna get money from you however they can. So let's be clear, when people say that things are not happening at the airport and they're not testing and they're not doing that, it's actually been confirmed that in Cancun airport, they have cameras that show people with fevers and alert authorities so that you will get stopped at the airport. So it's not that they're not doing something because you don't see it. They're doing it. They're using technology. So that is there, you know? And yeah, it's just about come with the fact that you did your due diligence. Patricia, how do you feel about, I know you have been in Mexico over 20 years and you've now seen the super influx of people flocking to Mexico. And I know that you love it, but would you seriously recommend people move to Mexico at this time during a pandemic?
Well, you know what, I've been challenged to think intergenerational. Mm-hmm. From my perspective, I would say no, because as an older senior, I would not want you to put me at risk or anybody else in high risk categories in danger. I hear other people talking though, sitting up saying that they would feel more comfortable here than there. So I can understand that perspective too. But if you do that, then I ask you to come in to this country, quarantine. You should quarantine for 2 weeks. You know, be respectful of the people here. Not just think of yourself, but think of all the old Mexican ladies that if you contaminate them in any way, they're more than likely going to die because they don't have the resources, okay? So I ask people to think of others first. Think of others first, because you have resources that many people do not have in this world. So that's all I understand both perspectives, but if you put other people first and then make your decision wisely.
Thank you for that, Patricia. You couldn't have said it better. Yeah, we definitely appreciate your perspective, and it makes a lot of sense. Um, yeah, I mean, I can't even piggyback on that. Like what she said just makes sense. Like if you're going to come here, come responsible. All right. Somebody asked, how do you find places to rent in Mexico? Google tends to bring up high priced vacation rentals. I want to start by saying I always recommend people usually get a hotel or Airbnb for your first couple of days. Once you're here, you'll learn the lay of the land or whether or not you like the area you're in. I never tell people to get a full month Airbnb or a month somewhere because you don't know where you're at. So when you get here, if you don't like it, you're able to move to another neighborhood. Marketplace on Facebook. Facebook Marketplace is a great place to just type in the city. You know, if you want to go to Playa del Carmen, you go to Facebook Marketplace, type in Playa del Carmen rentals, and you 9 times out of 10 are going to find rentals that are vacation rentals because they know that tourists is coming, but there are a ton of rentals that aren't. With that said, as you start meeting people and start developing relationships with people, you'll start getting more of the insider scoop, kind of like, oh, you know, I know a person who know, you know, that kind of thing. I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in and give your recommendation on finding apartments in Mexico.
We've used Vivanuncio, we've used Marketplace as well. When we first came, we found an Airbnb and just rented it for like a month and a couple of days. That gave us time to, you know, get on the ground, see what area we liked, what was close by, job, grocery store, shopping, you know, lounging, hanging out, bars and stuff. But heads up on Viva Nuncio is in Spanish only, so if you cannot read Spanish, it won't do you any good. But just be very careful with Marketplace because just like you have scammers at home, you have scammers here that'll play games with you, especially like with the utilities and things of that nature. So, you know, make sure that you do your research on like the CFE, that's like the government electricity agency. Make sure you can read your contract, or if not, you know, get somebody to read it for you to help you translate, to make sure that you understand what your responsibilities are when dealing with your particular rental property, so you know you don't get messed over and don't have to shell out too much money.
And let's be clear, many of us outside of Roxanne probably, and I'm not sure about Ashley, or definitely not you, Patricia, but a lot of us have moved around within the town that we're in. I mean, moving apartments is no big deal. Like literally, you can get an apartment, live in it for 3 days and be like, hell nah, I'm good, I'm ready to go. And go find another apartment to move into the next day. Like it has happened. And a lot of times, a lot of us nomads or digital nomads don't stay in our apartments longer than a few months at a time because we'll see something else that we like or want to check out and move on from there. I know Claire likes to stay in a spot for a little while. I'm more nomadic, so I might go from a studio to a 2-bedroom to a 1-bedroom all within a 6-month time span, and I'm okay with that. So I never rent longer than month to month because I have commitment issues when it comes down to where I live. Because the apartment itself can be beautiful, but the neighborhood might not be what I like. I lived in a beautiful, like brand new studio space, and I loved my studio space, but the dogs were barking at night. Mexico has tons of stray dogs. The dogs were barking at night. The neighbors were playing, you know, music all night. There was a Zumba class across, like that drove me crazy. And I was like, I got to go. So I packed up my things and got a new apartment. So it's not difficult. It's not like the States where you're in a contract and you can't leave. Whatever deposit you put down, if you leave before your thing is over, or if you ask them, they're most likely to work with you. If not, then you just forfeit your deposit and that's it. There's no eviction court. There's no all of that mess. Ashley, what about you and your family? Did you guys move around a lot when you got to Mexico?
Yeah, we landed actually in Merida. That's where we had started out at. And we loved it at first. And then we just realized it wasn't a good fit for us. And we were actually in a bad situation with our landlord. We signed a contract. We had bilingual friends read through it and assure us that everything was fine with it. It turns out everything was not fine with the contract. The landlord was horrible, whatever. So we packed up and we left, and we came to Oaxaca. We've been in the same place since we've been in Oaxaca because our landlords are great and we do like our spot, but we are starting to look at other options within the city though. So.
Yeah. So I just don't want people to get so caught up on trying to find a place to live. Just come find a place, like Claire said, for 30 days, or like Jamie said, they had got a place for like 30 days. Check it out and see whether you like it or not. I wouldn't necessarily recommend coming and signing something long-term because you don't know where you are. You haven't been here. So until you get your feet on the ground, check it out and see if you like it. I believe 30 days is a good amount of time, 2 weeks, a week. You're pretty much still vacationing. You know, we live here, our life. I say our life is a vacation. I don't know. I really am truly blessed and fortunate to have the life that I live. But it wasn't handed to me. I created it the way I chose to live it. So you have that ability to do so. David says, Merida is hot. Yes, it's one of the hottest damn places in Mexico along the Yucatan. It's very hot. And yes, Oaxaca does get cool in the mornings. But again, that's something that you can research depending on, there's no snow in Mexico that I know of anywhere, but there are regions that are colder than others. Chiapas, for instance, and San Cristobal, I was freezing, like absolutely freezing. It was cold. And I had, full on, North Face, zipping up, scarves, everything. It was cold. And I was in Mexico and I was like, this is ridiculous. So there's still seasonal places here as well. All right. So we also have a question from Vicky. What advice would you give to new expats who have numerous places in mind? They want to travel and to help narrow down their list to one. What would you say to help them narrow their list down? Who would like to take this one on?
I mean, I could say, well, what's important to you? I mean, for me, we didn't have an option because my husband's company is in Mexico City, but as I've traveled around Mexico, it's like, what are you into? Are you into the beach? Are you into crowded city life with a lot of options regarding restaurants and activities? Do you want peace and quiet? Do you want something more culturally rich? So I would say kind of narrow down what's important to you. What in your own life, what excites you when you go on vacation? What type of vacations do you venture towards? And maybe that'll help you narrow down exactly what type of lifestyle you want here. I'm from the Caribbean, so I love the beach, but I don't need the beach because it's part of my life. My family is in Antigua, so I can go anytime. But I wanted that hustle and bustle city life because in the US, I lived in the suburbs where it's very, house, garage, you just drive to a restaurant, drive to a drive-through. I didn't have all this people everywhere. So I would just say narrow down like what's important to you and pick a place that can offer what is really important to you. You're not going to find everything, but a lot of things that you're looking for, you'll probably be able to find if you just kind of think to yourself, what is important to me?
Exactly. That's a great point. For me, honestly, I have like split up my life between Mexico City and Playa and then Tulum. You know what I mean? Based on my needs at that time. Mexico City feeds my need of having a lot of things at my fingertips, music venues and clubs and bars and all of those things pre-COVID, okay? I don't know what it's looking like now, but I was able to get up in the mornings and take a walk in the parks and all of those things. And I went to museums and that fed me. Come October, I started getting a little chilly. November, I was like, I don't know if I want to do this right now. In December, I packed up my shit and I went to Playa del Carmen because I couldn't do the cold in Mexico City. So I lived in Playa for a couple of months and was quarantined in Playa, which was great for me. But when you have beach cities, there were no museums. There were no going for walks in the park. The only thing I realized that I was able to do was go to the rooftop, go to the beach. It was, to me, it was redundancy, but I enjoyed the weather. Then when I got tired of the beach kind of thing, I said, you know what, I'm ready to go to Tulum and put myself into nature. So now I'm surrounded by the jungle. I wake up in the morning, I got nothing but trees, the birds are chirping, and you know, I just don't have, the beach is close by, but I have more of a nature feel. So it's all about what is more important to you. I move around based on my needs for my physical or my mental health, period. What about you, Ashley? You guys move with the kids. What kind of things do you have to, you know, think about before you move because you have smaller children?
The biggest thing is their outdoor space to play. And that's one reason why we ended up leaving Merida, just because it was so hot. We had to stay in the house. Unless you're at a mall or something, you have to be in the house from like 11 to 6. And you can't really do that with 2 small kids. They're super active. So we have to be somewhere where we can go outside, walk around, see a park, do something. And luckily, even during the pandemic, we're able to do that in Oaxaca. So that's a big thing for us. I say for anyone who's like, oh, I don't know where to go, there's so many options. You have to embrace a little bit of uncertainty and embrace the fact that you might grow. Like, I am very much a beach person. I love the beach. It gives me life. But here I am, super happy in Oaxaca, where there's not a beach for 6 hours around, and I'm okay with that. Like, I love the mountains now. I was never a mountain person. So you never know how you're gonna grow or change when you actually make the move, and you just have to embrace the fact that your life might look a little different than what you imagined, and that's okay.
I love it. I love it. So Patricia, let me ask you a question. Marie Taylor asked, is it hard to build relationships with Afro-Mexicanos in the communities? Let's get Patricia off mute.
What I was saying, I love that question, because guess what? We're all Black. I live in the area that has one of the most concentrated areas of Afro-Mexicans. When I go around town where I do business, I always laugh. I do photos of hands, and their hands are darker than mine. Right? Their hands are darker than mine. Great news to announce, because I just talked to the president of Afro-Mexico Negro about 2 nights ago. We're talking about what to do with it. We have November would be the 21st annual meeting of the Black Towns of Mexico, and they just decided 2 days ago to do it via Zoom online. For me, I think that's wonderful, because that means so many other people can join in, okay? And we want you to know about the movement. We want you to know about the movement. If you're a resident, you can be counted in the upcoming census. We are just loving what's going on right now. That we just had a census for the first time in the history of this country. Afro-Mexicans are counted in the census for the first time, okay? So these are wonderful things, wonderful times that are happening.
Wow,
and are very, just like Black Lives Matter, this is a progressive move here. So I would invite everybody to, first thing is to make sure you connect with us in November. And then once again, go out and, you know, look at those arms and those hands, connect.
Yeah, there's a lot of Afro-Mexicano communities in Veracruz, Oaxaca, from my understanding.
Mexico City, okay, Mexico City.
Yeah.
People don't necessarily.
So a couple more questions came in, and then we're gonna wrap this.
Sure.
Oh, I think you're back on mute, Patricia.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want? Go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought I had cut you off. I didn't want to do that. We only have about another 15 minutes and we're going to wrap it up. But there's a couple of questions that came in on my inbox, and I kind of wanted to just touch base with them really quickly. How do you get a temporary visa, or how do you become a resident?
A temporary visa, temporary visa is usually, I'm probably not the best person to ask. Those are for folks that are staying here for less than 4 years. Permanent visa is when you're planning to live here. Once again, it's a great time to do this because back in my day, it used to take 10 years to get permanent residency. Now you basically pay for it. If you can show, I think it's $30,000 of income or assets, you can immediately get it. So once again, I advise people it's called a strategic window of opportunity. This is a time, if you're going to do this with the exchange rates up and the fact that you can get these visas for basically buy them, then this is the time to at least put that process in place. You might not know exactly where you want to be, but at least put the process in place because it's a tremendously opportune time.
And I heard in certain regions it's easier than others to get your temporary visa, meaning if you're in a place like Roxanne in Mexico City, it might take longer because there's more people applying for it. So I don't know. I'm not trying to become a resident. The great thing about Mexico is that they give you 180 days upon arrival by flight. So that's 6 months worth of time to be here on a tourist visa.
On a tourist visa. A temporary visa is usually applied for if somebody's going to got a job offer or like a student who's going to come down here to be working. Permanent residency visa means that you are going to be living here. And then, you could be super bad and get your dual nationality, which I got 2 years ago. But again, that tourist visa allows you to have 6 months. So it allows you to move around and explore and decide exactly where you want to be before you start the process of all that other stuff.
And somebody had asked a little bit further in the chat if you have to leave in order for the visa to be extended. From my knowledge, yes, you do have to leave the country in order to get another 6 months. However, you could fly out and come back same day. Pre-COVID, I even thought about going to Cuba for the weekend and coming back because flights from Cancun were like 200 round trip. So
you can leave, you can go to Guatemala, you can go anywhere and just come back. You only have to be gone 48 hours. I know because I got deported once.
Not the D word. You got the big D, deported.
I have earned it. I got deported. Sure.
Wow. Yeah.
So, but you can go 48 hours and come back.
But I will say to that point though, Patricia, I did leave and went to Guatemala and went to Belize, and I came back through land and they only gave me 7 days. So had I flown
you would have gotten 180 days.
Correct.
Interesting.
So I just want you guys to know that even though Mexico borders Guatemala and Belize and a couple of other countries, if you do land border runs, which I would never recommend, they only give you 7 days. You no longer get the 180 days. So just keep that in mind. But you can come in and out of Mexico pretty much as long as you want. I haven't seen anybody here with restrictions. I see a couple of familiar faces on here of people I know that live in Mexico who have been here about a year or more. I don't think any of you guys have applied, but if anybody has applied for temporary residency or permanent residency and you want to say something, please put it in the chat. because I can't answer that personally. But I'm going to move on to the next one. The next question is how to get health or dental insurance. I know Claire had put a link.
Yeah, I can tell you. So if you're coming here temporarily, we talked about that. If you're coming here long term, you can get insurance through VUME, and the second one is WEA, WEA. My policy is equivalent to what I had in the States, and I only pay $700 every 3 months for full coverage, and it's included coverage around the world, and I have insurance in the US. So I was actually shocked. My policy states that I cannot be in the US more than 6 months a year. So my US policy under Obamacare was like something ridiculous, like $15,000 or something crazy. And so I only pay $700 every quarter, which has full coverage and $25,000 of coronavirus. So, but if you're going temporary, and AXA's $75 policy will take care of you for primary. And that's like a super beefed up, but better be safe than sorry.
All right, Claire, if you don't mind, somebody's asking for those insurance companies' names. If you don't mind dropping them in the chat when you get an opportunity, that would be great. Ashley, would you mind touching base on how you handle insurance with your family? Because I know there's probably going to be some parents wondering about that.
Yeah, we got insurance through Safety Wings. So that's the name of it. Yeah, Safety Wings Insurance. My husband handles that kind of, but yeah, and it was a really low price and it covers all of us. So I can put that info in the chat.
Awesome. All right. So, and I know Roxanne, you would get insurance through your husband's job, I would assume. Yes.
Yeah, we have Cigna International, and that's through his company. So it covers us here in Mexico and also in the US. We go back.
And Jamie wrote that she has temporary residency through her job, and I'm sure they offer you insurance through work. Is that right, Jamie?
Yes, I have insurance through my job. It's in the it's like a you have like a discount plan, but then you also have like the government insurance as well for the state hospitals and all of that good stuff. The only thing was I just had to wait like maybe 9 months until my paperwork, wrapped up before I could venture away from the Yucatan, you know what I mean, where I could be covered. But we also have private insurance as well. So.
Thank you for saying that, though, because I do want to preface the fact that if you come to Mexico, don't come here thinking stuff is going to move like this, okay, with that American mentality.
Patience.
Like, virtue, okay? Because if you know CP time, there's a such thing as Mexican colored people time.
Right,
like,
right.
It's a thing. So paperwork could take a long time. Somebody coming to fix something could take a long time. It's a lot of yeah, okay. A lot of that happens. All right. So somebody asked about having a plan for your phone. I just use SIM cards in every country I go to. I have a plan with Google Voice actually has a plan that you can pay for. I think I pay like $13 a month, and I can make calls over Wi-Fi and things like that. I don't typically keep American plans, but I know some people who have. I would recommend, I think, T-Mobile over all the rest because they give you free text messaging, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't know what the American plans look like. But if you're paying $50+ for a plan, I say drop your plan and just get a SIM card. I'm moving through this kind of fast. Somebody asked, how do they register your car in Mexico? I don't know, I don't drive. The gas in Mexico is hella expensive. I prefer to either take taxis or, in Playa del Carmen, for instance, in Tulum, we do not have Uber at all. So there's taxis all over the place, but, and you can order those on WhatsApp. In Mexico City, there's Uber, which I loved. So you can just, pay for it on your phone, and it's little to nothing. Rides for like $2-3 to go places. So, and they have a metro system and all of that thing. I wouldn't necessarily agree with driving around. I don't think any of us have cars except Patricia, do you drive?
I'm getting one. I'm getting a Jeep though. Because once you get a road trip,
Yeah. We sold our cars in the States, took the cash, come down here, about a used car about 10, 12 years ago. All I barely do is go to the grocery store and a few other errands. Okay, but because once again, you've got public transportation, it's easier to jump on the bus than to sit up and buy the gas in the car and all that. But I do keep it. But the registration problems and all those other headaches is so much easier to just get rid of. Just sell the thing before you come down here, bring the cash. You'll keep cash in your pocket and still buy a car and be able to have transport. If that's what you end up needing, you might find out that you don't even need a car.
Exactly. And just to let people know, most apartments, I know people are asking about things like Netflix, cable, whatever. Most rentals that you rent in Mexico, no matter where in Mexico, are fully furnished. Majority of them are furnished fully. And that means full kitchen, has your dishes, all that stuff with it, living room, some places, dining room. And most places that I have lived in, and I can only speak for myself, has always had Netflix. I canceled my Netflix because all my apartments had Netflix in the apartment already set up for me to watch. So I was like, well, why am I paying for Netflix? I literally plug up my stick, the Amazon stick on all the TVs that I go to. And if I don't want to watch Netflix, I just go to my Fire Stick. So I don't have any expenses. That would be the last question of the night is, what kind of expenses do you guys have? For me, I'll let you know, I have a 1-bedroom condo in a brand new apartment, and internet. I don't have cable specifically, but I have internet, high-speed internet. I have a full kitchen, a washer and dryer, floor-to-ceiling windows, a terrace, and I pay $550 US a month. I don't have any expenses outside of what I pay. I do pay for electricity only because they get tired of tourists coming over and playing the AC, even when you're not in the space, just utilizing up the electricity, and that's it. Does anybody else want to share how much you pay for your apartments and what kind of apartment?
I'll share because I'm the bougie luxury girl. I live in a building that is 24-hour security, 24-hour concierge, private garage. My rent is around $1,200 US a month, but it depends because I pay in pesos. I have maid service several times a week. I pay $5 when they come clean my living room. I pay $10 US when they clean my whole apartment. I have a private chef delivery service that costs me maybe $10 a meal, and they deliver all my food weekly. I have a lot of services. And then there's taxis on WhatsApp. I mean, everything delivery, Postmates. I used to live in Cali. Delivery service will go get anything for me because we're in a quarantine. I mean, it's still not safe. So anything I need, I will text them. Amazon delivers to my building. I'm an entrepreneur, so my perspective is different. I run multiple businesses, so I literally don't have to leave. I work 5-6 days a week. So I have everything delivered, and then I hang out at the beach club every week.
Claire is the queen of ordering shit, okay? She'd be like, why are you going to Walmart? You could just order it.
I have a massage lady that comes every week, and I do 2-hour massages, and it costs me $50 US for 2-hour massages. And I do virtual.
Yeah, I miss Marisol.
Yeah. Nubia hooked that up.
She used to come to my house too. So these are the things that you can have living. Yeah. Yeah, that was my masseuse lady. I loved it. My massage therapist. I'm sorry, masseuse is not the proper. Do you mind sharing how much you have or you pay in Oaxaca for your accommodations?
Here we go. Yeah, so Oaxaca is a little bit cheaper. So we live in a 2-bedroom apartment. It's nice, it's decent, has really nice rooftop views. We go up there a lot. We're paying $250 for that. It's like 5,100 pesos, más o menos, like $250 a month. That's everything included, internet, water, garbage service, all of that's included. We're looking at maybe moving into a 3-bedroom apartment, and that's not going to run us more than $6,000. It's right next door. Our grocery bill is really cheap because
Can
we
you
go
give
to
it to them in US dollars? Because to them, 6,000 sounds like
Oh.
6,000.
Oh man, it's so hard. It's so hard for me to think of US. 6,000 is like, what's it?
$300. It's about 300 US dollars.
Thank you so much. It's about $300. So for a 3-bedroom, it's like 2 or 3-story place, it's going to be 300 US dollars. With the services included, it'll probably be another $50. What else? When we go to the mercado, we get tons of fresh fruit. Like the other day, we got like a couple pounds of rambutan. It's this tropical fruit, a bunch of mangoes, grapes, pineapple, enough fruit to feed us for about 3 or 4 days, only like $5. This is if you shop at the local mercados, not the supermarkets. My husband treated me to a massage for Mother's Day, like a wonderful 1-hour massage. I don't know why I haven't gone back. We only paid about $12 for that. So you can find things really cheaply, especially if you live in local neighborhoods. So we live in like we're the only expats in sight. I don't know any other foreigners who live around us. So we're living in a real Mexican neighborhood, and we're paying, well, we're still not even paying Mexican prices. I'm sure we're still being overcharged sometimes, but still pretty cheap. So we're pretty happy with that.
I try not to use the word cheap. I try to say inexpensive as much as possible.
Yeah.
So Roxanne, I'm not going to ask you the direct question about how much rent is, but can I ask you the question about when you have an employer from the US that's paying for you to live internationally, do they cover cost of living at times, or is your cost of living covered by your husband's job?
Yeah, they for a big chunk of our cost of living. I mean, I live very, very well in Mexico City. They cover my kids' private school. So that in itself right there is huge. They cover a lot of things. And so for us, we pretty much live extremely well here. We live well in the US also, but I mean, we are saving so much money living here because our expenses here are so low. I will say this, I am, for a friend who's relocating here actually, she asked me to ask people in my groups about housing, and she just wants something that's really affordable, no more than 14,000 pesos. Nubia, you're gonna have to help me. I can't convert that. but
like $650.
Yeah, like, so it comes with, like, everything's paid for, it's fully furnished, it's by, you know, the metro system, bus system. So she doesn't have to do anything but literally show up, and once a month she pays that price. And food, things here are so inexpensive, especially if you engage with locals, especially if you develop relationships where people want to help you and they know you and you're loyal. I mean, you could go to the markets and spend hardly any money because you're a loyal customer, and because you value them, you want them to stay in business. Come here, definitely develop a community, like person that you love their produce and you go to them all the time. The first time they might be like, okay, who's this person? But if you're consistent, they'll start giving you stuff. They'll call you, let you know when the best produce are there so that you can come directly to them. They'll have it set up for you so you can just pay them. You could even pay them later. And it's just a great setup. So I would say the cost of living, unless you're living somewhere right now that's really, really inexpensive, you can really live well here.
Yeah.
And hands down, especially if you have children, you know, for us, the biggest perk was just them covering the school expense, because schools here can be expensive if you do the international route.
Yeah, and I live in the most, I would say, more expensive part of Mexico. Tulum is pretty high, and then I would say comes Mexico City, and then Playa, in that order, and I pay under $6. Now, I will say this, I am paying what they call COVID pricing. There's a bunch of COVID pricing going on right now. If this was high season, come November in Tulum, the numbers will be tripled, because Tulum from November through, let's say, March, it's high season. So, I mean, you got all the Europeans traveling here, and they're paying $1,000 a night to stay in the villa with the jungle and the trees and stuff. So if you're thinking about moving here to Tulum specifically, after August, it's a no-go unless you want to pay out. I'll just be honest with you. Jamie, what about you? What are you guys paying for in Cancun? Can you
so we're 7,500 pesos, which is a little over $300, and that's supplemented by a housing stipend from my job. We live in a real Mexican neighborhood with locals. There's a lavanderia across the street. We got the little corner store. The juice lady sells the juices and stuff, and the Circle K's. You want some tamales, you want some tacos, you just go out there and get it. And it's there's a park nearby. And so it's definitely a big difference compared to what we were spending in the United States. Food, maybe $200 a month, but we cook a lot, and we get steaks, and a pack of steaks at home now is like $70, and we're paying like 230 pesos for for a kilo of ribeyes, and that's maybe about 10, 15, 20, $25, give or take, nice thick cut, we buy a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables as well. And let's see, so it's maybe about 25, so about $50 a week in groceries, so $200 a month in groceries, and that's fresh fruit, vegetables, meats, cheeses, all of those things. And we still eat out sometimes. I don't feel like cooking today, what you want? And you can Uber or Rappi, whatever you want. I ran out of chapstick one day and kept forgetting to get it from the store, and so I literally ordered 3 things of Carmex from Rappi, and they delivered it within an hour. You can have whatever you want delivered to your house, usually within an hour or so.
And Rappi
Jack Daniels, anything.
Rappi actually delivers cash.
Yes, they deliver cash. You can pay your bills, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things about Mexico that is very easy, but there are a lot of things about Mexico that are not going to be the same like the States. So you got to know, just don't come here with that mentality thinking that you're going to have this. Claire mentioned black hair care products. Actually, I must say the Walmart in Playa sells Cancun. They sell, but I found out Cancun isn't owned by black people. I was very disappointed about that. There's
Sally's
also,
too.
Sally, yeah, we have a Sally's Beauty Supply. So there's Sally's in Playa, there's Sally's in Mexico City. Mexico City has some of the most diverse things. I seen a hair salon that sold weave and extensions and all types of stuff. So there are amenities, and you got to realize, because Mexico is considered North America, you can still get a lot of the things that you would typically get in the States here. And Amazon opened up Amazon Mexico, maybe 2 years ago, Roxanne, in Mexico City. Their headquarters is there. So they are now actually fully up and running, Amazon Mexico. So you can order.
Yeah, and I'm more of the natural type products. So I stock up on natural shea butter. I stock up on aloe vera gel. I stock up on different oils, and I just kind of whip up my own thing. But you could get all that stuff via Amazon Mexico. I was going back to, my parents live in Houston, so I was going back once or twice a year to get stuff shipped at their house and then bring it back here. But with COVID, I just started just getting stuff off of Amazon, and it's showing up within 3 or 4 days. So that is definitely an option for you.
Yeah, I am a firm believer of what I call my re-up. So the best time to do a re-up is when your 6 months is about to end. Have all the stuff you want ordered to a friend's house in the States. pick your stuff up at the States with an empty suitcase and bring it back to Mexico. So like you said, Roxanne, I have 3 things of shea butter. I got my black soap. I got my oil, my essential oils, all this stuff that I was running low on. I went and I just purchased it all on Amazon in one big bulk. It was like Christmas. I went to the States for a weekend, picked up all my things and brought it back to Mexico with me. That you can do that as well. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for joining us. I want to apologize for anybody who felt like this was a bashing session about like, don't come to Mexico. No, the whole point of the forum is to be completely and utterly honest with you guys about what is going on in Mexico and our prospective cities and places. I just want to say thank you to Claire, Ashley, Roxanne, Patricia, and Jamie for your expertise and your knowledge. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining us. Thank you to everybody in the chat for jumping in, asking questions, to, just being active. I really do appreciate that. We're here, we are here, but you gotta understand, and I just wanna preface this, when you send an expat a message, you're probably one of 100 people who are sending the same message. So please do not take it personally if somebody doesn't respond in the way that you want them to right off the bat. But we are here, and I want you guys to be able to ask us questions because the information is available and we wanna be able to give that to you. So this Zoom will be uploaded to my Chronicles Abroad YouTube page once I get that up and running. So this will be a replay there. Before we, somebody said bring grits. Yes, if you bring grits, I need some grits. That's my thing. Before we head off really quickly, I just want you guys to put in the chat. Claire, please put the chat into your business, your information on where people can contact you at. So if Claire, Ashley, Roxanne, Patricia, and Jamie, if you want to share your information, because Claire has a luxury travel company. Ashley is a blogger with her family, so people who have kids. Roxanne does photography, and she has a ton of knowledge because she's been in Mexico for 5 years, and she admins a group about Mexico. Please put the group information in there. Patricia is the OG. Patricia, we love you. We thank you for all of your knowledge that you are blessing us with and continue to bless us with. Jamie has written a book talking about We Out. So Jamie has wrote a book about leaving America and actually breaking those toxic ties with America. So please pick her book up. It is on Amazon. And I just want to say thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate you. This was a huge win for me. I mean, literally the amount of people who had shared interest about coming to Mexico is amazing. And we look forward to seeing all of you when you do decide to get here. All right, till next time. Bye, guys.